Welcome to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy. And here we are, a few days after the election that was. And gentlemen, your initial reaction?
It's the election that was.
Well, you know what? I must say I can't help but say this was probably the most disappointing election I've ever been seen federally or provincially. It wasn't much positive about it. It seemed to be mostly about voting against the Conservative plan, rightly or wrongly. So it was pretty disappointing.
But isn't that what people do, Ian? I don't know. I guess
to some degree, you're always kind of saying what you don't like, but hopefully voting for something as well. But there was very little discussion about the Liberal plan. There was a lot of discussion about what they didn't like about the Conservative plan. I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of people who were disappointed, and I was one of them. Now, the good news is we have 4 new local MPPs, re-elected MPPs, and they're great, and I think we'll make a great contribution.
Well, and I think I think something that's important is 50% of the representation to the legislature is in government. If you and I can do what we should be doing and working with all 4 of them for our common purpose, we may have some success at getting some things that are badly needed in the region of Waterloo.
Well, we'll as we always do in business to business, we'll invite the newly elected premier
to
come and do
hold him to the gun.
We'll invite her to come and do a joint event with us and showcase her 2 new MPPs. But right now, we this morning we'll talk to Catherine and Michael and Catherine McGarry, the newly elected MPP for Cambridge, and hear what they have to say about their observations and how they're going to work locally.
All right, let's kick it off now. Joining us now to kick off the show is the newly re-elected MPP for the riding of Kitchener-Waterloo, Catherine Fife.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Actually, a very dedicated member of the provincial legislature to business on Sundays at noon.
Yeah, no, I love the banter that you guys have. But also I think that you do a really good job of actually connecting what happens at Queen's Park to the local scene here in Waterloo region, and that's really important.
Well, let's move. I guess like your first reactions. What we have is a Liberal majority government. They have to call back the legislature and pass a budget. What are you expecting now that we have some certainty for at least the next 4 years in terms of the political scene in Toronto?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm pretty happy. Obviously, it was a really long campaign, the longest, I think, provincial campaign in the history of the province. And I do want to actually extend my congratulations to Kathleen Wynne. It is important that we do have a female premier of this province, and kudos to her. All I've ever known is a minority government, so this will be new for me. And I think that even last night I was asked by a lot of reporters about the majority status, and quite honestly, I mean it's going to take some time to process. We are going back. The NDP is going back to the legislature with the 21 seats, and 11 of those are women, which is excellent. Mm-hmm. And I think that my feeling is that I'm going to approach this situation at Queen's Park the way that I do most things, is that I'm going to try to build relationships, I'm going to try to find consensus, and I'm going to stay focused on the priorities of people of Kitchener-Waterloo and bring their voices to Queen's Park.
What about through the course of this election? The polls were very tight right from the very beginning. I think everybody, really didn't know how it was going to turn out. That's probably why the pollsters were saying, well, it's going to be a minority something, and never really expected a majority. What do you think, Catherine, was really the turning point? Because there was a point where you and Andrea, your leader, had started to build some phenomenal momentum right after the debate. It seemed, most of the pundits were saying that Tim Hudak was a clear winner from the debate, and yet, the shift.
Yeah, you're quite right. I mean, we did post-debate, we had a bump of almost 3 points as the NDP, and then we just 2 days ago, Ipso Reid came out and had us we were in a statistical tie. and that was a large sample. That was the largest polling sample. So I think that the pollsters are going to be scratching their heads this today. And I think for me, though, the lesson, I have to say, is that I paid close attention to what I was hearing at the door. And that's what smart candidates actually do, is that you stay connected to the people that you're working for. You listen to them. And it came down to, focusing on a really strong ground game on Election Day.
Everybody says, all the experts always say that it's quite a bit different running in a by-election as opposed to an election. What differences did you see?
Well, I really did feel that way. And I think that in some respects that was pressure put on myself. But also, I mean, there was, both the Liberal and the PC camps sort of discounted the by-election. And I felt really strongly that I'd worked hard in that by-election, but I also really, really knew that to win it in a general would feel more real.
Let me ask you something, Catherine. I mean, this riding, before you won it in the by-election in 2012, it was a long-time Tory riding held by Elizabeth Whitmer. How do you account for your success in that riding? Because a lot of cynics at the outset would have suggested there's no way that riding is going to go NDP. Yeah. How do you account for your success?
Well, I think that, and a lot of people say that it wasn't a PC riding, it was Elizabeth Whitmer's riding. And she had a strong tradition of doing some really good local advocacy, and she stayed connected to the people, and I have followed in that path. And I think that it's actually just good politics, and it's a little bit old-fashioned politics, but it's the kind of politics that I like.
Well, I think actually, Kitchener-Waterloo, when they started talking, Kitchener Centre's a bellwether. So it went with the Liberals yesterday and Diane Vernile, and that it's gone in every campaign federally and provincially for the party that won. But Kitchener-Waterloo really has been a members' riding. I mean, Elizabeth Whitmer, Walter McLean, Herb Epp, Max Saltzman. So it's run the gamut of Liberal, Conservative, Tory, and now back to New Democrat. So, federally or provincially. Looking forward, what are the things that you're going to try and work on? Obviously, it's different. You don't control the balance of power, but we have to do. There's lots of things that we at the chambers want to do for the community and how we work together. We work across party lines. What are you looking forward to in terms of what are we going to move forward for this community? Whether it's on transit, whether it's on Highway 7, what are the things you're going to work on from a local perspective?
Well, I mean, all the parties made a firm commitment during the campaign to two-way all-day go. And so that'll be my first priority at Queen's Park. I really do believe that the business plan that was put forward by the City of Kitchener and Waterloo and the businesses community that came forward with that plan, I think it's sound. And it calls for $396 million over a 10-year infrastructure. It's 33,000 jobs. We have to get people moving back and forth between Toronto and Kitchener-Waterloo. And those 10,000 people that commute here, they need transit as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously, my role is to push that agenda. And I'm going to be doing so in a very assertive way at Queen's Park.
Well, assertive you always are.
Yeah.
What are some of the? I mean, just looking from a macro perspective, do you think this election? I mean, it's a little hard to tell, but what's your initial reaction? Was this a firm confirmation of the Liberal plan, or was this as much a sort of repudiation of the Conservative plan? Because it sure seems to a lot of people that this was a vote against something as opposed to for something. Because I do
isn't every vote against something?
Well, I guess that's true.
You don't get voted into office; you get voted out of office.
Well, I guess it is, but I guess it's going to be interesting to see. The Liberals put a plan forward in their budget. Said they were running on it, and there was very little talk about that budget. It was mostly on someone else's plan and some of the issues. So, I mean, I'm just interested.
So, listen, at the door, there was two themes at the door. One is that Mr. Hudak created a sense of fear. And so we instead of talking about a Liberal track record, we were talking about 100,000 cuts. And it was frustrating because, you want to stay focused on why we are in this position fiscally in the province of Ontario. And the other issue was that there was this anger. It was palpable against the Liberals in my riding. I mean, there was those were the two themes: fear and loathing. And so, and so
that's a good movie, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I have to say, I mean, I'm happy to have won Kitchener-Waterloo, but I still genuinely remain concerned concerned about the state of the economics of the province of Ontario. And we do have to get people back working, and we have to make sure that the duplication in the energy file and the health file, that we find some streamlining it. We streamline those factors so that we can actually stay focused on finding some savings and focused on the front line, especially in the healthcare sector. So the work before us is huge. And I'm very interested to see the budget that's going to be brought forward down by the Premier. If it is the same budget, it has $3.4 billion in extra spending. Mm-hmm. There are some places that I want to see that spending. One for personal support workers, for nurse practitioners, and of course for the developmental, those with developmental disabilities file. Now that was supposed to roll out over 4 years. We wanted to do it in 3 years. And so that's another file that's really close to my heart, and I want to make sure that that people who are most vulnerable in our society actually have some supports. So, I mean, the work is going to be huge, right? There's no doubt about it. But my approach is just to go to work every day and try to do the best and try to hold them accountable. Yeah.
I think I said this morning on social media that, it was a marketing disaster, and I think it to some degree you might look at it as a marketing disaster, even from the NDP's perspective, because you got caught up in the fighting of the terror of the PC party and the mistrust of the Liberal Party, and so it kind of took you off your focus game. I said, people don't buy what you sell, people buy why you sell it, and it kind of, you kind of misstepped everybody along the way because you couldn't get to that point of why you were selling what you were selling.
Yeah, and I think that we'll be doing an interesting debrief on what happened in this election, and but if we had supported that budget, there would be millions of people criticizing us for propping up, and so at some stage you become the enabler, in
this is
a budget.
This is a classic example. I mean, I think it was right. It was time for an election, but elections take a life on their own, yes, and the Conservatives, and it's sure they will be judged on it. But they took the initiative. They put themselves front and center, and the public made a pretty clear judgment on that. So, but thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Catherine. Our guest was congratulations. Our guest was Catherine Fife, the newly re-elected NDP MPP for the riding of Kitchener-Waterloo. You're listening to Business, coming back with more on 570 News. Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy. This segment of Business is brought to you by Cowan Insurance, and we welcome another one of the winners from the election, re-elected in the riding of Kitchener-Conestoga, Tory MPP Michael Harris.
Michael, welcome and congratulations.
Thanks, John, for having me. Appreciate it.
A lot closer for you personally than I think even anyone would have imagined. So first, talk about your own local victory, and then we'll talk about what happened across the province.
Yeah, I look at a little bit of a nail biter last night, but I'm very thankful for the constituents and voters of Kitchener-Conestoga for placing their trust and faith in me to continue to serve them locally here at Queen's Park. I've been a staunch fighter for them over the last 2.5 years, and I'm going to continue doing that over the next 4, each and every day, putting their interests first. So I want to thank them.
Michael, do you think this election was a vote for or a vote against?
Well, that's it'll be interesting to see what perhaps the political experts say after the exit polling on this one, but it was an interesting election campaign. I mean, for those that say negative ads don't work, I think this proved them wrong, for sure. So,
well, it was an interesting stat last night that I saw, late into the evening, that, somebody did a poll on what influenced voters, and I think 45% of respondents said that the media influenced them, and 33% of the respondents said that the ads on television and radio influenced them. It's, it's a really telling story that, how then does a political party get the message out of not what they're doing or how good or bad, but exactly what their platform is and the reason why they're presenting that type of platform.
Yeah, it's so important to clearly communicate with people what your intentions and plans are. This election, there's no doubt that plan didn't get properly communicated. I tried to do that each and every day at the door. I spoke to thousands of people in my community to explain to them that we have to live within our means, just like you do in your own home. But There were times where we were bombarded by ads, spreading falsehoods, and that's a tough thing to overcome.
Well, we said this earlier, and I really do think that the election became about the Conservative plan and not about the Liberal record or the Liberal plan. And I mean, this is one of the things where, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you think this means for the province. I mean, this is your first majority legislature. You've been in a minority, just like Catherine has. So what do you expect? I mean, the fact is that they're going to present, allegedly, the same budget, which has $3.4 billion more spending, 70 new promises, and they're going to balance the budget in the same time frame. I'm not sure anyone believes that's possible. But how are you going to deal with those issues moving forward? And then I guess probably, we asked the same question of Catherine. What are the things locally that you're going to work on? Because, sure. I mean, ultimately, whether you're happy or not, you got to represent the constituents and try and get government to move on things that are important to the region.
Yeah, we woke up this morning with a Liberal majority government, but in reality, we still have the same financial situation we have, and that's a significant deficit, $12.5 billion. We've got a huge debt, $280 billion, $10 billion interest payment. These things are real. Although the party now has a majority, these things are real. And going forward, although there's been a lot of promises made, we're going to have to hold them to account for every tax dollar that they spend or invest in Ontario. And, for the last 11 years, we saw a lot of that being wasted, whether it be power plants, Orange, e-health. Our job of an opposition will be even more so important to ensure that Ontarians have an official opposition that will go to work every day to hold to account the Liberal government for the promises that they made, especially here locally. We've waited far too long for Highway 7 from Kitchener to Guelph.
GO service.
You know what? GO service was slashed initially. It's been promised and re-promised, and darn it, that's got to happen, because people need to get in and out of Toronto and back to our community faster, and different modes of transportation. Look at open tendering. That's a reality that we're faced with here in our community, and I'm going to continue to fight it. I've told folks that I'll retable that bill as soon as I get back. I will commit to doing that, because I'll fight on behalf of those tradespeople and contractors who have worked on local infrastructure for decades. And you know what? We've got an important job to do. Not only locally, but across the province.
We are joined by Michael Harris, re-elected in the election in the riding of Kitchener-Conestoga for the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario.
Well, Michael, and one of the unfortunate realities of election night is everyone gets their report card, and sometimes it can be pretty swift and it can be pretty blunt. And Mr. Hudak got his report card. He resigned last night. I'm not going to ask you to kind of, who is going to be the leader, but what's the process that the party's going to have to go through in terms of selecting a leader in the interim for the legislature, because you need a leader in the legislature, and then what do you think? I mean, as much as anything, the leader is going to be a proxy for how do you renew the party, because obviously for whatever reason people did not buy what you were selling, and to your marketing point from earlier in the show, Greg. So what's going to happen in the short term, and how do you plan to sort of reinvigorate the party?
Yeah, well, it's important. I've already sent an email to my colleagues, and we'll be meeting next week to select that interim leader to ensure that when we're back at Queen's Park, which I believe we're back in less than 3 weeks to table the budget, to begin and our work as the official opposition. That's an important job here in Ontario. But at the same time, we'll have to rejuvenate, and there will be a renewal process to ensure that Ontarians, when they go to vote in the next election, have a party with the Ontario PC party that can lead our province. And that's going to take a lot of work. I'm prepared to do my part with my colleagues at Queen's Park. But you're right, there's a lot of folks that woke up. There's no doubt folks on all sides of the political spectrum that were unfortunately defeated last night. Put their heart and soul into this, and locally, my colleague Rob Leone and others, I'll miss them at Queen's Park. They're good MPPs, and hopefully they'll continue to contribute to our party and our province.
Well, and based on it is going to be an interesting process. But getting back to the current situation with a majority government, that both you, your party, and Catherine Fife, who we had on earlier, and her party are saying that financially the Liberals' proposed budget of May the 1st was the wrong way to go. And that it's just going to build on the deficit. So at this point right now, your prediction would be in a year from now, we're going to be sitting there, you're going to be sitting there, and so is the NDP sitting there saying, we told you so, that the deficit's going to grow.
Well, absolutely. The last budget, or the budget they'll propose in the next few weeks, is going to increase taxes on Ontarians by over $3 billion. At the same time, we're going to grow the deficit. Only a Liberal could actually achieve that. And so, the cupboards are bare. I talked to so many people in this last 35 days that said, Mike, I have to live within my means in my own home or at my business. How come the government can't do the same? And so we'll go back and ask those questions of the government because the cupboards are bare. And you know what? We have to invest in the things we care about the most. But at the same time, we can't see our hard-earned tax dollars be wasted because there are those things we hold so dear: education, healthcare. Those are the core things people expect their government to invest in, not waste their money. And so I'll be there to ensure that happens.
Now, you're going to work on the local front. You've touched on a few things, but it's a common theme that Catherine mentioned, which is GO Transit, which is Highway 7 in particular. Both of you have talked about that. You've got two new MPPs on the government side from Kitchener Centre and Cambridge. What do you plan on doing to reach out and try and have the Regional Waterloo Caucus to get some of those things accomplished?
Yeah, look, no doubt, regardless of their political affiliation, I've worked close with Catherine, looking forward to working with her again to put the interests of our community first, our region. And I congratulate Diane and Catherine, and I look forward to working with them to ensure that Waterloo region is best served. We talked about Highway 7, GO Transit. We have a significant community here, and we need to make those investments. I talked about open tendering. Those are all things that we're going to have to work together on to ensure that it happens. But at the same time, we're also going to have to live within our means, and that'll be an important part of what I'm doing with those colleagues locally.
An optimist, Michael, might say, out of the 4 members of the provincial legislature in the regional Waterloo, 2 of them are with the government. It could play a significant role if all 4 members of the provincial legislature can work together for the betterment of our region.
I think this region's got best of both worlds. They've got 2 effective opposition members to hold the government's feet to the fire. Obviously, 2 government members, and we'll see where it takes us.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael, and again, congratulations on your victory.
Thanks, gentlemen, for having me. Keep up the good work. And thank you to the voters of Kitchener-Conestoga yet again.
All right. Our guest was Michael Harris, newly re-elected MPP for the riding of Kitchener-Conestoga. Coming back with more as Business to Business continues right here on 570 News. Welcome back to Business on 570 News. This segment of Business to Business is brought to you by Gallagher's Travel. Joining us now is newly elected Liberal MPP for the riding of Cambridge, Catherine McGarry, the first Liberal that the good folks down that way have elected since 1943.
Well, Catherine, it's Ian McLean. Congratulations on your victory. Very historic on a couple of fronts yesterday. I think, as we've said earlier in the show, maybe a little surprise to some of us that there's a majority government, but congratulations to you personally in Cambridge. You broke some new ground and made history. And the Premier Wynne broke ground as the first elected female Premier in the province of Ontario. So how do you feel this morning?
Oh, absolutely fantastic. It's a great win, and I'm also the first female MPP here in Cambridge.
Absolutely, Catherine, it's Greg, and of course we saw each other last night, and I gave you my congratulations, but I'll give it to you once more. You and I, of course, and Ian, because we do a number of things together. We're going to be working closely together on a number of issues. In fact, what's of interest probably to you is I've already compiled this morning at about 5:30 in the morning. I compiled my 8 principal things that I need to sit down with you as soon as we possibly can and start to work on them.
Great. I'm glad you've got an agenda already. I didn't expect anything else from you, Greg.
I didn't want to. I didn't want you to have any real rest or anything. But let's get to this. Let's get to this election. because, when this thing really kicked off, when this election really kicked off, the real principal reason why Andrea Horwath wasn't going to go out and support that was she actually, I believe she said, and I'm paraphrasing as opposed to quoting, but something to the effect that she can no longer prop up a corrupt government. And you know what? That's a pretty strong message for her to go out and send. And then all of a sudden we go from a minority Liberal government to a majority Liberal government. What do you think happened along the way?
I think, Greg, that people actually listened to the message that was being put out by all three party leaders. And I think that people really understood that Kathleen Wynne is a very genuine person. It's very easy to speak with her. And she does win admiration from all parties. I can't tell you how many people told me from all parties, whether it's Conservative, NDP, or Liberal, saying, I've never voted Liberal, but I really like Kathleen. And I heard that over and over and over. And I think people recognize that she is trying her very best to make sure that some of the issues that happened in the past cannot happen again by changing some of the rules. But she's also offered some explanations of what has happened in the past. But I think more than anything else, this is a party that's looking for a windshield down the road, and the rearview mirror is a much smaller mirror, but it's something that we can hold up and learn from. But in reality, people really wanted to know where we were going rather than where we'd been.
Catherine, it's Glenn Pelletier calling in. I don't know how many analysts last night post-election result used the word authentic to describe Ms. Wynne.
Yes, and she is. You can see that in any interaction that she has with people, whether it's a young child, whether it's a senior, whether it's a party member or somebody that has been protesting outside. She is genuine with everybody and really and truly believes that government is a force to help people in their lives, and that's really her strong motivation. And I think that reads through. So throughout all the rhetoric, all the negative mudslinging that we've heard, I think people really heard that message. That's certainly what they heard from me at the door.
Well, it's interesting. We said off the top, and I'd like to hope that that the election was about positive messages, but it didn't strike many people that it was, and maybe at the door was a little different, but it seemed to be more. And we've talked with both Catherine Fife and Michael Harris already this morning, that this was more a vote against the Conservative program than it was necessarily a vote in favor of Premier Wynne's plan. But how do you plan to sort of maybe change that perception? Are you going to retable the budget? Are you going to be moving forward on the budget as it was written?
From what I understand from Premier Wynne, yes, she's going to retable the budget within 20 days, and I think she's at the office today of the LG to ensure that we go back to the table. But they are retabling the budget. And I had Minister Charles Sousa here last weekend to celebrate Portuguese Day, or Portugal Day here in Cambridge, and he also said that we are ahead of target deficit resolution and on target to resolve the deficit by 2017 and 18. And he said it's a fully costed program. We have not increased any spending. We're actually held to less than 1% program spending, and they have the ways to do that. So we will be moving forward with some of the services, the core public services that people depend on in health, in education, in job creation.
Yeah. Now, moving to the local scene, obviously, we've heard from Michael and Catherine, and I'm interested in what your local priorities are in terms of your own riding, but also for the region of Waterloo. We've talked a little bit about Highway 7, and Greg and I have been working on that with all the elected officials. We've been talking about Go Trans or Go Service between Toronto, and I think all parties have agreed on that. Are there other local things? Cambridge Memorial Hospital and getting that expansion, I presume, is one, which is near and dear to your heart personally. But what are your local initiatives or goals as a local MPP?
Some of the issues, of course, become regional as well. Transit is a big issue, and we are going forward and moving forward to ensure that we have better transit in this area. One of the things that's more local is Mayor Doug Craig's consult that's coming forward in July regarding the possibility or the feasibility of bringing GO service right here to Cambridge. And that is something that we've been already discussing and that I want to bring forward to see if it really is feasible here in Cambridge. So once that report is ready in July, we'll be meeting, and I'll be able to make those introductions to the Minister of Infrastructure and Transportation to bring that forward. And secondarily, looking at how Cambridge may participate in the LRT. I think that priority is going to be a little bit longer to achieve, but Mayor Doug Craig's priority here is GO train first, LRT second. The Cambridge Hospital, of course, is certainly near and dear to my heart. Currently, as you know, we have just completed the design work earlier this year. It went out for its request for proposal bid process. The bids and the RFP process closed about a month ago, and now the hospital has 5 groups in front of them that they're sifting through to choose the group that's actually going to build it. But we have completed that very detailed design process, so we're excited about having it go forward.
Mm-hmm. Catherine, you and I have chatted quite a bit, actually, through the last number of months. It's always great to see you out at chamber events, and now you've got real reason to come out to chamber events because we'll be squawking at you all the time. But
and I'll have the time to do it. It's very difficult to come out to chamber events when I'm involved in nursing and doing my day job.
Yeah, it is, and you've done a great job of making that space in your schedule for a long time, and we really appreciate that. But I think, you and I have talked about the momentum. Actually, you actually knocked on my door before the writ was even dropped, which was extremely gratifying from my perspective to see an individual out there working hard. You've run, and this was your 3rd campaign that you've run in Cambridge, and I think we both could feel the momentum changing as the election period went on in Cambridge. What do you think was maybe that turning point that certainly led to your victory?
I think it was my continued momentum building up voters' confidence in me at the doors. I've been out doing door-to-door work since early March. I think that this time people really know me. I've been in the community for a long time, as you know, because you and I have done an awful lot of work together here in Cambridge. And I think putting my picture on the sign made a difference because people knew me from years gone by and whatever activities either my children were involved with or community organizations I was involved with, and it came together at the doors. It really was that important door-to-door touch and asking people what was on their minds rather than coming to the door and just trying to give them what I was going to do. I think it's that personal touch, and that did build momentum. Well, I also feel, too, that many people were tired of the rhetoric out there. They didn't want to hear about gas plants anymore. They wanted to know what we were going to do. They wanted to know what their future looked like rather than what the rearview mirror and what the past looked like.
Yeah. Well, Catherine, we've now officially installed you as a regular on Business to Business. So every month or so, we'll have you back on for an update from the government side of the house. So we hope you'll join us again soon, and we look forward to, as both chambers, working with you and all those that were successful last night to build a better region of Waterloo.
Absolutely. I'm looking really forward to it.
And congratulations once again, Catherine.
Thank you so much.
Congrats, and thank you very much for joining us. Catherine McGarry, newly elected Liberal MPP for the riding of Cambridge. You're listening to Business on 570 News. Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save-On Energy. And our guest now is Jeff Quint from Water North Hydro.
Well, thanks for joining us again, Jeff. And last week we talked about our cooling during these warm months. But something that we use all year round is lighting, of course. And we both have, especially in the summer months, we either are out on our patios or we're working outside. And obviously our day-to-day lives using our lighting inside. What are the things that you're trying to promote through Save On Energy as far as lighting's concerned for both a residential and a business user?
What's really hot right now is LEDs. LEDs and lighting, both inside, outside, both at home and at work. These seem to be the next wave in lighting, and they're really starting to gain momentum. And as they gain momentum, the price is dropping, which is further increasing that momentum going forward. And we see many applications for it, whether you're a retail business or you're an office or you're a manufacturing facility, or even at home. There are many applications where you can use LEDs, and they make really good sense and help save a lot of energy and a lot of money.
What exactly is LED lighting? I mean, what's the technology? I mean, it's using less power to get the same amount of lighting, and that's one of the concerns in the early generations was the light as bright? Was it responsive? Like what is LED lighting? LED
lighting is basically electronic lighting, so it's a circuit board powering light emitting diode. So it's basically an electronic component, so like a small computer. And I guess that's the bonus to LED lighting, is that it's come along so far now that you've got a lot of opportunities with LED lighting that you didn't have before with compact fluorescent and regular incandescent. And it's the controllability of them, being able to dim them, being able to build in intelligence in them for timers, motion, changing the color.
So I think, too, I just had a personal experience, Jeff. A couple of years ago, we built a new cottage from the ground up. And of course, we're very cost-conscious on our hydro consumption. It's a rural jurisdiction, so hydro rates are a little bit heavier. And so I was recommended, actually, from the Save On Energy folks to try and look at options where I could incorporate LED lighting. So we put in about 74 pot lights in the building, and then realized at that point, well, where do I get LED bulbs for that? Well, they do come with them. These were halogen fixtures, but they had LED replacements. The really neat thing about it, in two regards, is first off, I could put 74 bulbs in there, and I'm less than 150 watts in power. If they're all on. The other thing, and I remember one of our segments before talking about cooling in the summertime, is comparative to halogen lighting. Of course, these are dramatically cooler lights, and that all goes to saving energy around the home with the cooling too.
Exactly, and it applies at home and at business. And I mean, incentives for these on the business side can range from $6 to $20, $19 to $29, depending on the type of bulbs. And on a homeowner side, we've got coupons that provide up to $5 per bulb back. So, I mean, it's a great time to take advantage of the programs.
So, I mean, the bulbs are still more expensive than a regular incandescent, but the savings are dramatic in terms of your power usage, the heat, and all those sorts of things as well. So, what's the payback? So, if someone's saying, "Well, geez, I can get a set of light bulbs for $1.99, and this one's going to cost me $6.99 or $8.99 for an equivalent LED." What's the payback? Like, why should someone make that investment, whether a business or a homeowner?
Well, you really have to look at the application of the product, and that's really the key is knowing how long it's going to be in use, and that's really the payback is driven by what it's replacing and what it's being used for and how long it's being used for. But generally, I mean, you're looking at lamps that last 25 times longer. So, the longer use applications are the best spot to use LEDs at this point.
Well, as always, we always say, make sure you call your local utility or go to that Save On Energy thing, and you and the gang will be happy to help out any business or homeowner.
You bet.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. All right, gentlemen. Looking ahead now, Greg.
I guess first of all, I should probably, from a Cambridge perspective, I worked extremely well with Rob Leone. He's was a regular attender at chamber events, and we did a lot of great things. Although he was in a minority setting in the opposition side of the government, so it was a little difficult to get things through. But Rob Leone, as a human being and as a person, is just a great person, and was always there when I called him. So certainly going to miss
and a regular guest here on Business to Business.
And a regular guest here on Business to Business. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. The ballots have been counted, and we've got what we've got. And Catherine McGarry and I go a long ways back, about 20 years, that I've been working with her in the community, and she's a great lady. She's a wonderful human being. I'm looking forward to getting down to work with her, because I think, it was interesting. We had a session with Eric Hoskins. Minister Hoskins, and Catherine came to that, and she challenged Minister Hoskins on some things. So there's lots of common ground here.
Well, I think what it was fascinating from today's show is when you listen to, there's going to be some common ground for the local MPPs, both on the government side and the opposition, on things like GO and Highway 7 and the infrastructure that's required here in the province and in this region. So that to me, I think there's a good opportunity for us as chambers and the rest of the business organizations in the community to work with our elected officials. So it's going to be an interesting time. I think I would still say I think most people will be surprised that there's a majority government, but with all the challenges that the province faces, it's probably good that there's someone that can make the difficult choices.
I do have a little bit of a concern, obviously, because largely we know that some of the negative advertising from a whack of the unions were there, and we're going to, are they going to be calling on the government to pay the debt that's now owed to them? And I've got some concerns about that. There's some major contracts that are coming up.
They're
for
all
renewal,
coming up.
and
Everybody's coming up.
And they're going to be banging on the door saying, "Hey, we did our thing for you. What are you doing for us?" And
all that will unfold. We're either going to see it in this budget or the next budget, but it's probably something to keep eye on. But really, what I'm concerned about, we still have a busy 10 days before the end of June. We've got our a point of view luncheon with the hospital administrators. So we got the presidents or senior executives from Cambridge, Grand River, and St. Mary's talking about how they're improving the healthcare system on June 20th, which is going to be fascinating. June 23rd, we've got our 100-Mile Feast, which is a fantastic gourmet meal that sort of celebrates the food industry here in the region. And then June 25th, we have our Energy and Environment Forum. I think it's the 36th annual. So busy time for us, and then we're all going to collapse and take July to regroup for next year.
Well, this is kind of the start of our planning session for next year, and we got some great ideas coming forward. We got a new board that I'm bringing in this month, so a couple of new faces on that board, so it's going to be great. And I think we're looking for a great fall coming out of the nice hot summer. I hope.
And by the way, Greg, on behalf of Junior Achievement, I want to thank you for donating the foursome, the golf foursome.
I want to thank you for your donation on my behalf as well.
Foursome, we gave away. I was honored to be the MC. We auctioned off a foursome with yourself at Gulf Country Club. And
how come Ian didn't do it at Westmount? That's what I don't know.
No one wants to play with me, so it wouldn't be worth it.
There was somebody else from Westmount. I'm not sure if it was the golfer or what.
But listen, guys, this has been. We're going to have a couple live shows through the summer, but we're going to have some repeats over the course of the summer. But it's been a great year, and we've got lots of work to do moving forward in the fall, and lots of events that we're going to jointly work on together.
Great show. We'll see you guys in a week. You've been listening to Business, powered by Save On Energy on 570 News.